What's happening, gang? Mid-roll here. Oh, I've got that stuck on there from heat. When I say mid-roll, I mean I'm midway through a project. That's the Hustler Fast Track. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the Hustler Fast Track for Automotive West. Got the old engine out, and the tank is lower than the engine. This engine that I'm putting in does not have a provision for a vacuum to pull a vacuum to operate the fuel pump. So my way around it is a little unorthodox, but I'm hoping it'll work. As you can see right here, this is, I've already hacked it up, hacked quite a bit off of it. I want to keep that bracket because that's the bracket that'll hold the regulator rectifier, and I also want to retain that access to get vacuum for the fuel pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this 2/3 the way around, so I've still got a little bit to take off here, and essentially just snap it, bloop, snap it right onto this one with a little bit of sealer between the two. Of course, I'll put a hole in this, and then a couple of hose clamps to hold a part of this on here, so we can hold the voltage regulator rectifier and have our vacuum access. And then I'll figure a mounting bracket out for the fuel pump once I get this far. But I figured I'd turn the camera on, because this is an unusual circumstance where I have never seen an oil dipstick that is used to pull vacuum. Most of the ones I see have the hole in the valve cover, and it pulls vacuum off of the valve cover, and the fuel pump's located up here. Not the case on that engine that was in here, and it's not the original engine that this came with, so just bear that in mind. Engine came out real easy, no big issues there. Muffler, everything is identical as far as connections and everything. There's no wiring changes, no nothing. It's just pull the old one out, stick this one in, and it turns out the other engine, which is sitting out here looking forlorn on its side, is had the governor blew in it. But it's sitting here. I pulled off some stuff that I wanted, but usually there's just a hole in the valve cover that you pull your vacuum prime off of, but not on that one, and that's okay. Like I say, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and if I had to, I could actually just drill and pipe tap that oil fill and use a barbed fitting. I could just stick one of those in there if it came down to it. But again, the reason that I don't want to do that is so that I can retain the mounting bracket for the regulator rectifier. One less thing to have to figure out a mount for. And I believe up in the loft I do have a couple of fuel pump brackets for these engines. In fact, there's a engine underneath in the back there that probably has the bracket as well, but we'll just figure something quick and dirty out to utilize just in this general area here, which was roughly where it was located before. So I'll show you guys progress, see what I come up with, if my idea works or not. So hang on. Alright, I've whittled her down. Here's the oil fill tube for the engine, and here is the little makeshift doodad for pulling vacuum. And quite simply, you can see I didn't cut it in half. I only cut about 1/3 out of it, and that way it snaps on and you just move it up until it tightens itself up. And it's got a pretty good seal just on its own without putting any sealant on it. So I'm going to try that route, and I'm just going to use a couple of broad hose clamps. I've cut a slot right in here, so I can put one there, and I'll put one here, and that'll hold that sucker on there and be able to pull vacuum for the fuel pump. So let me get it stuck on there and get everything routed. We'll take a look at it, see how things look after we get that done. Alright, we got her. Got the hose clamps on there, got my vacuum line on. I do not have the hole in the drain tube yet. I want to make sure I can get everything lined up. And here's our regulator rectifier mounted nice and handily to that piece we sacrificed off the old engine. There's our vacuum line coming up to the P port on the pulse pump, and then there's our outlet going to the carburetor. Now we just have the fuel inlet, which is right there, that will connect to that, and we should be golden as far as getting fuel and charging the battery all in one fell swoop with one piece of sacrificed oil tube from the other engine. So now it's time to set this sucker down in there, get everything bolted in, get the clutch mounted to it, pulley's already on it, and fire it up and see how she does. Now if it does alright, we'll bring it back in, lift it up, sharpen the blades, clean out the broccoli from under the deck, lube all the critical lube points, and then I can load this one up and get rid of it tomorrow morning. Take it back to Rick and make him happy. So that's the plan. Me working on the weekends so that I can keep up with stuff in August. But I'll turn the camera back on when we're all tucked in. This is a choke-o-matic-ish kind of thing, where you just move the throttle all the way forward and it automatically chokes when you push the throttle all the way forward. It pushes on that hoop right there. I'll show you. As you bring the throttle up, you can see it coming up there. It'll push on that, and that closes the choke on full throttle. So that's what told me that was a replacement engine in here already, was because that engine was the same type of setup. But originally this had a choke. So I may go ahead and delete the choke and then just write an arrow and choke up here so that they know to put it full throttle in order to get her to start. That's enough procrastinating and talking, Zippo. Get to work. Well, anytime you do something like this, you're always going to have something to throw a wrench into the works. In this case, it's the oil drain. If you look, I'm back probably 2 inches from the hole where it needs to be. You can see the shiny bolt head there, and there's the hole. And here's my oil outlet right here. Well, I need that oil outlet to go over this way far enough and then go down so it's easy to change the oil. Otherwise, you pop that off, you're going to get oil all over every blooming thing, like most riding mowers are out of the factory. No, I don't work that way. So I've got this right angle street-ish made out of brass. That's going to go in, and it's going to sit just like oriented, just like that. And then I have this long pipe. I didn't have a long pipe, so I have a union here, but that's going to go, and essentially it's just going to come over and it'll drain right down here where you can see the ground right down here. So there's always little things you got to do when you're swapping engines, but this one's actually a pretty easy one. Yeah, the only things I had to worry about was getting vacuum for the fuel pump, which was no big deal. Didn't have to do any wiring whatsoever. and change the oil spout. Of course, I just changed the oil and it's got new oil in it, so I have to tilt the engine on its side in order to get this all put in there. But we'll get it in there, we'll get the engine bolted down, get everything hooked up, give her a start, and take her out and see how she acts. Got a couple of pivoting idler pulleys that I've got to re-tension once I get the belts on, get everything on there. But we'll get there, and then we'll show you. Okay, we're all buttoned up. All the wiring's buttoned up. I'm gonna check to make sure that we're charging off camera. I'm sure it is. So with the wiring that this thing had in existence, I didn't have a kill wire to connect, which was weird to me, but that's okay because throttle all the way down kills the engine via a little wire right there and the shoe that operates the throttle. So let's see if we're going to start. I force fed some fuel into it and it shouldn't need choke because it's hotter than Hades. So let's see what happens. We ready? Make sure everything's out of the way in case it decides it wants to go wandering on me. Yeah, it wants to wander, it wants to go backwards that side. So that means I need to adjust that rod. I need to make that rod shorter. So we'll get that adjusted. After we get that started right up, didn't it? I didn't even pay attention to that, just paid attention to it moving around. We'll shorten that rod and then we'll take it outside and see how it does. We've got to get it to stay still with the arms out. And we also need to adjust the brakes. So let's see here. When I pull this, there's my brake actuator and it's really floppy, so that needs tightened down quite a bit. What about that side? Let me see how this side is. Just part of the maintenance. I mean, stuff that, yeah, this one's actually grabbing and compressing the spring. So yeah, tighten that down. But I'm going to adjust that rod first so it won't wander anywhere. That way I know I've got it in true neutral. But alright, we'll make a couple adjustments and we'll get her outside, see how she does. Alright, some time has elapsed because I stripped the starter gear, so I had to pull the starter off, replace starter gear. Got everything else adjusted. It doesn't move when you start it. Stay still just like it's supposed to. And I'm going to clip you guys on pressure washer there, and I'll put it through its paces a little bit. See what we can get this thing to do. See if it'll mow. Well, there we go. They've done something wonky to the deck. Because it doesn't go down as far as it should. But that's okay. That's the way that they wanted it set. That's the way it's set. It does move. It pulls up and out of the way and does all that. Just doesn't go down as far as I thought it might. But this is more or less cutting a brush field. So it's nice and quiet. It's great. Another job done. This one can go back to Turner's Automotive West, and I'm really pumping the midnight iron. It's after hours, and it's after hours and on the weekend. But my fuel pump idea apparently worked, because we're pulling vacuum off of there, and we are charging. I checked that, and of course we gave it a good old power wash. Everything's good and clean. It has a very good used battery in it that is showing 100% state of health and 98% charge, and that was this month that I checked it, and it's a battery from June of 2020. So he's got himself a new engine, he's got himself a new battery, and it's been fully serviced front to back. Not a bad trade to get cold AC into Ruby. So that's going to end it. Say goodbye to the Hustler. Fast Track Z. Alright, that's it. Promise you guys, I will see you when I see you. Zippo later. I'm out of here.